Hello. Welcome to episode 1 of the Goatless Yoga Podcast. I'm here with my friend and host and fellow yoga teacher, Shawn Lindsay. Hello, Shawn.
Hi, Kelly. I'm pretty excited to have our first podcast and talking about the title, Goatless Yoga. Um, how do you feel about that?
How do I feel about that? I love it. I love
Yeah,
it for many reasons. Um, when we look at the yoga world today, it's so vastly different from, like, say, when yoga started really gaining popularity, like in our generation, like the late 80s, early 90s. It was just really almost straightforward. This is yoga. You started to recognize some of the postures and things like that, and now we see a lot of titles of yoga and then my question becomes, what is yoga in this world, in this reality, and do we need all those ands?
yeah. What comes to my mind is yoga not enough? Was it not enough just to sign up for a class or read about it and you know uh, and explore it that way? What happened that it made it not enough? At what point in time did someone say, "Well, no, this is a great, class, but we got to bring in the goats"? So something did happen, and it's lasting quite a number of years now, where it's yoga and something. There was a few people on social media who were making a joke out of it, but it's true. That's why it's so funny, because it is true. Yoga and goats, or yoga and wine. To me, that doesn't really match up with the way I see it.
So what is yoga to you?
Well, to me, it's a discipline. It's a continuous practice, um, without all that what I think is nonsense. Honestly, wine or with goats or any of the other things. To me, it's a discipline to try to explore your own mind and body without distraction. When they say clear your mind, if you're going through some breath work and then someone brings a goat out, that really is a total distraction of what it means to me. I mean, it might be fun. I mean, it's just it's for everyone, but that's certainly not my vision.
Right. I mean, I want to ask people, have you ever been to a farm? I when I think of this goat yoga, I used to work a little on some farms, and they had goats. They had numerous breeds of goats, and while they're lovely and the cutest of things, have you ever had one of those hooves like really root into your skin? Those cloven hooves. And then they hosted a birthday party at the farm that I worked at, and I watched one of the goats hook a child through its sundress with its horn and flip her into the air upside down and scared the bejesus out of her. She cried and went home. I'm like, well, at what point does it cease to be yoga and just a farm adventure?
Just like a petting zoo, exactly.
Mm.
And that's the reason for trying to start this podcast, or start to talk to others about it and see if are we the only ones that think that that's kind of ridiculous, or takes away from your practice and all the time you've dedicated to it, when someone could just go out to a petting zoo and say this is yoga. So I think it's much deeper than that, and I think it shouldn't be watered down. I think you should take it seriously. I think you should practice as much as you can. Be disciplined. Read about it. Um, it's funny. The same people will probably, are probably really into, like, traditional yoga. The same people who go to goat yoga will tell you everything about how you shouldn't do, how you shouldn't say namaste, or you shouldn't do these different things. But yet they're the ones who are going to, these goat yogas and other events, just including yoga to say it.
You know, there's a lot of questions on what is yoga, how yoga should be done. And I mean, it's honestly, it's like opening up a can of worms. It really can be. When we think of it philosophically and logically, I'm sure someone within, we've been recording for 5 minutes. Someone within the first 5 minutes is probably already thinking, well, shouldn't yoga also be fun? And that's fun.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think it should be fun, and I don't believe we're going to eliminate that from society or from people having those events. But when is yoga enough? Isn't it enough? Isn't a hour and 15-minute yoga class, an hour and a half yoga class, an hour and a half private, practice at home enough? And what makes people bring in the what I think are obstacles into exploring yourself, and that's why it's been being included, because you don't want to do the inner work. You don't want to open up something that might be a little scary or might be unexpected, and that's why you have the distractions about these other goats, wine, food, chocolate, whatever else is out there, because you're afraid. um, and once you get beyond that, you'll kind of, I believe, realize that you probably don't need all that distractions and obstructions in your way of exploring yourself.
So that comes back to the question of what then is the point of a yoga practice. And here in the West, the way that it has been presented in some aspects, I mean, even you could argue that hot yoga is in this category of goat yoga.
It is.
It's an add-on.
It is.
It's an add-on to the practice, but I can be honest, I have really enjoyed some hot classes,
Me too.
So the question then being, what is the point of yoga? And like I said, the way it's been presented to us often here in the West is that it's just another exercise modality. And in that case, you see all the jazzercise and the Zumbas and where people wear costumes to exercise and the different competitions that people do with exercising. And there is yoga competitions, actually.
Yeah.
So is yoga just a form of exercise, in your opinion? Like, is that justifiable?
Well, I got into it for that reason. I had lost some weight and was looking for something that I thought would be easy. So, and it was anything but that, and it was hard, and it was frustrating. But it did open something up in me and started a fire that continues to this day. The self-discovery, the opening my mind up to past experiences in life, reading more about the ancient traditional philosophies of it, and all up into modern day. So the point of it for me started as a physical practice, but now each day that I get further into my journey, it's become less of a physical practice and more of a spiritual awakening.
And so then, and I'm asking you a lot of questions, feel free to ask me if you do. But I feel like riffing. I tend to play devil's advocate sometimes, you know. So I think of people who are listening to this conversation, right? And the questions that they might be asking. And so then I'm sure someone is thinking, does it always have to be some spiritual awakening? awakening journey? Can it just be exercise?
I believe it can be. I believe it can be. But I don't think you're going to get the full experience. What do you think?
So yeah, for some people, maybe it is just exercise. But I think when folks start to create a disciplined practice, that there is also something else there. And to be completely honest, I don't think that that's exclusive to yoga. I think yoga is designed. So the yoga that we practice today, asana, is a relatively new thing.
Yes.
Traditionally, yoga was a liberation philosophy or a means of self-study, and it included quite a lot more breath work, pranayama, meditation, sitting for long periods of time. And most of the people who practiced it were renunciants or ascetics. I always have trouble pronouncing that word. Who renounced the normal life to become more like a monk. You know, some of them went as far as living off of handouts, and you'll still see, you know, some of them do. You know, they'll walk around with their arm held in the air for years and years and years until that arm becomes like the size of a stick, and they never put it down. And that's part of their yoga practice, right? So, and then it evolved. It evolved to include what they called householders, or people who still continued about a normal lifestyle. And I think that's when more of the asana started coming in. I know a lot of the poses that we do today have come from many different forms of exercise, including calisthenics, and have only recently gotten like yoga names to them. But when we go back to the Yoga Sutras, the word asana really just meant the way that you sit to meditate. So the practice of physical movement, again, is relatively new in comparison. Though, you know, I tend to wonder about that history, to be honest. We're in physical bodies that have been moving for time immemorial. I don't think that there's a single yoga sequence that's original. I mean, we're in human bodies. People have been moving these bodies, right? And another point being that when we're moving, and this is true, like you said, something awoke in you, right? Had that awakening happened when you played sports? Because I know you have a history with sports.
It did not. It did not.
It did not. And so what other forms of exercise have you done other than sports?
Well, I've lifted weights, I've ran, but never. You know what? That's a great point, because I never was challenged in the other sports or stuff. I thought I was pretty good at them, and yoga was like the first time I was challenged at physical a physical posture, if that makes sense. Like if I played basketball and I dribbled the basketball and I made the basket, I made the basket. And I was able to, for some reason, make the basket or steal the ball or dribble the ball. But in yoga, I was challenged because it was foreign to me. I didn't get it. My vision of it was different than when I finally sat on my mat and started to listen to cues from the instructor. I actually couldn't do any of the postures, zero. So and coming from a background with sports, and even I was no stranger to the gym, and I've done rowing. I've done all this type of stuff in my life. That is what I originally thought, kept me engaged in it. It was that it was challenging to me for the first time in a long time. I was having something that was challenging me, that I can actually try to progress and sort of get better at it.
Mhm.
So that's why I continued it for a long time. And then only after, some months, I, kind of discovered this is more than just being able to touch my toes easily. This is something else. I started to think differently and feel differently and eat differently, for some reason. And, I'm kind of still exploring that today.
Mhm.
That's how kind of I met you, and, was going around and going on different yoga workshops and retreats and trying to figure stuff out.
Mhm.
Kind of had the same thinking with certain things.
Right.
Yeah.
So then my question would be, and this piggybacks off where I ended up with this line of thought. Do you feel like the postures themselves influence the way that energy moves through your body, and then therefore heightens your awareness of yourself?
Yes, I do. I
And do
do.
you think that that is what is different than when you did exercise or sports in the past?
I do. I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because there was a definite difference in how I felt after a basketball game or after a yoga practice.
Mm-hmm.
He was different. Almost high, it was almost high, almost, I know in running they have like an ammonia high, or, maybe some other sports too, but I never felt that way before. I never felt that fire that it said, okay, this is, the next level
Mm-hmm.
type of, in my mind. So, I mean, I'm grateful for it. That's kind of why, brings me to talking about recording this now, is to try to, I would love everyone to experience it. Um, so it's been wonderful.
Awesome. So traditionally, back to that, what is yoga? What can be included in yoga? Um, Asana is thought to be very, very purposeful and to influence directly the way that our energy moves through our body, through the different channels that energy does move through the body. And we could have a whole podcast just about that. But the postures, even the way that they are sequenced, were supposed to have a direct physical influence on your body. And then there's kind of two schools of thought in yoga. One that it is that liberation philosophy in both, but one is more of disconnecting yourself, like you are not your body, and so your body doesn't really matter in the mix of things. So
Mm-hmm.
to separate your identity from your body, which I can see as being very useful. But then the other is more of seeing the body as a tool for liberation, right? Yes, knowing that you're not the body, but the body is the tool for the experience of the fullness of life. And then when you come more fully into yourself, then that's when you get out of that cycle, right? And can be liberated and move on. So either way, however you approach it, it can be, I think, a really deep study of who am I exactly? Why am I here? What are my patterns? Why do I act and react the way that I do, etc.?
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it doesn't always have to be like in your face, you know? Like
No,
you said, you were experiencing it before you even knew what it was.
yeah. And I never went to look for it. I think that's an important thing to talk about, for a minute too, is like I didn't go in there looking, okay, I'm going to have this spiritual awakening. I'm going to feel great. I'm going to get, really learn about this stuff. I just kind of went in actually not knowing, um, what to expect. But that's true. But that not going and looking for it, not even reading a book about it, not really knowing too much about it besides thinking that was going to be some stretching, some moving, maybe some twisting, um, things. That's the only thing I really knew about at the time. Makes it even more powerful because having that happen and then kind of, I think I said it in one of our workshops. I kind of reversed engineered into it. Like then I read about it. I went, holy shit, that's exactly what happened to me. And started reading some other people's accounts of an awakening or the yoga practice or stuff like that. So that's when I know I was kind of on the right track, but experiencing completely on my own, completely alone. And I really, I'm thankful for that because it was important not to have a guide during that time because no one influenced me. I just did it on my own, how I wanted to. And whatever came up, came up.
Yeah.
To me, that's the most thing I've done in my whole life.
Yeah, I can see that. One of the, or some of the most profound moments for me in my practice, and I've been practicing 25 years now. I can't believe that. But some of the most profound moments is when I had experiences that I had no words for. And it could be months, even years later, and I'll be reading something, studying, doing something that explains the experience that I had.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, there's the words I did not have, but I experienced that. So it's a
Exactly.
thing, even without the prior knowledge. That's so
Right.
validating to me.
Right. Um, but I think that some people may have read something before that, just because they liked a particular topic and read about it and then maybe experienced it and then knew about it already. I kind of am really thankful that I didn't know about it because I kept kind of saying, wait a minute, what was that? And I
Mm-hmm.
remember being on my mat or at some point just like looking up at the ceiling going, wow, what is happening? And changing right there and then and noticing it and recognizing it, being conscious of it. And anyone who's experienced it will know what I'm talking about. It's very hard to put into words what the experience is. Kind of out of body experience, but not really, if that makes sense. It's just I knew what was happening, but I just felt a little elevated in being, alive and being, I don't want to use the buzzwords of present or something like that, but I felt really, really alive at those moments, and usually it was during or right after a practice that I
Mm-hmm.
experienced, you know, towards the end of the practice, if I remember, remember correctly, or driving home from the studio and just having that, moment of wow. I guess similar to an, runner's high or with weightlifting or any kind of sport, but I never experienced it before with those sports.
Yeah. There are those moments when you can feel the energy, literally. You're in Shavasana, you feeling that energy moving. Or when your actual energy, you feel the body get so relaxed that your energy lifts up off your body. Like
Yeah.
you have those states, or like when you're driving home and everything's a little bit broader and
Yep.
clearer and just almost like I'm so awake. It's scary. I'm so awake.
Yeah. It's
Like,
it doesn't feel normal,
mm-mm.
but really, when I start to think about that too, this might be another podcast, is that maybe I wasn't normal before. I was just being influenced by so many distractions that I was I was dim. I wasn't really shining as bright as I should, and as after really good practice or a good couple of days practice, and then realizing, wow, this is truly next level or almost elevated life. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to me, it felt. And you know what? I don't care if it sounds weird. I don't. I think that it was. That's the way it was. That's the way it is. Where it's almost like I say this too, like you know, looking at a maze from above for the first time and being able to see the way out or back in or how to get to a certain point of it. I wasn't trapped. You know. Um, so that's another way I explain it sometimes to try to put that feeling into words.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think it's time. If the in this 2025 we're going forward from this day forward to be genuine, to say how you feel, to do what you want. um, I just feel like it's coming back that way, and I think I'm in a good position to experience life now without the goats.
Without the goats. so okay, that brings us kind of back to the goats. And what can be included and it still be yoga? There's a question, because like I said, depending, hot yoga, having a room that's 110 degrees, that's an add-on. So how strictly do we look at these add-ons? Even I use Shavasana spray in my class. It's a mist aromatherapy.
Hmm.
That's an add-on.
You're right. It is.
It is. Music is an add-on.
So are we saying that we actually, are not against goats anymore?
Are we?
I don't know. Um, I think if it's, I think yoga is for everyone, and there's all different flavors in it, all different styles, all different music, a lot of different sequences. Um, but I do believe it should be a discipline. And if it's just a free for all where just people are running around, or you might want to run around, it's not yoga to me. It's not a yoga practice. It's it's something else with yoga mixed in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't know how strict I want to be on it. I don't know that. I haven't really thought about it. I like listening to rock music when I practice. So,
Yeah.
but
So
I'm
do I.
not like listening to some easy listening or some no music at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'll still practice pretty much the same. For that
Yeah.
particular style or class. So it doesn't really, you know.
So I guess maybe then the question is, well, the reason I've never attended a goat yoga class, and I'm not really planning to,
Me either.
um, and there are multiple reasons why. And again, if you do attend them and you love them, great, you know. But I don't I take my practice, and of course we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously, but my mat and my practice is a very, very sacred space. And not saying that goats aren't sacred. And then there's the whole thing of practicing in community. But I think the question returns to distraction. When are you using practice to distract yourself from the actual issues at hand, the actual
Right.
things that you need to look in the eye about yourself, about the way that you interact with others, how you present yourself in this world. We have already so many distractions, so many to deal with. And it's great to go have fun. If you want to pet goats, go to a petting zoo, visit a farm, have a farm day. That's a thing. And it's fun. Have fun, but also do your yoga practice. And like really take a moment to say, I'm going to really feel this practice. Like, I don't know.
I think too, we're coming and talking as teachers, you know, and when you have a class and you say you're going to teach this particular class an hour and a half, hour, whatever it might be, and students come in, you know, they're looking for answers, you know, and that's why the people are showing up. You know, maybe when I first showed up, maybe I didn't know I was looking for an answer, but I guess I was. So when they come into my class, they're looking for answers. They're having some obstacles. They're having something. There's a reason why they walked into the studio. And as instructors, we have to have the answer. Not just some saying, not just some silly meme, not just, and certainly not ends. We say, well, oh, you're having a problem with your certain situation. Well, how about try goat yoga? That's not going to solve your problems. Or a glass of wine, which is another one that I just don't like that one for some reason. I'm not against it. If you enjoy wine, you go for it. But how is that going to solve some of your issues that brought you to your mat? Like you just described your sacred spot, your peace, your hour and a half, whatever amount of time you put on it. How is that helping you? Because I'm going to tell you the answer that it's not helping you. That distraction, that part that you're bringing into one of the most sacred things you're doing for yourself, your well-being, your wellness, is just a distraction from the issues that you came to the mat to try to help you through. And that's why I will never go to a goat yoga class. If someone told me they had a great time at a goat yoga class, I would want to hear all about it. I think it's, great that you had a great time at it. It's just something not for me, and I don't think it should be brought into that place, because it is just that. It's just distraction.
Yeah. That one, I think most definitely is. I picture the cloven hooves digging into people's skin. I picture defecating and urinating on my yoga mat, on my body. They're going to let it go when they have to go. And,
Right.
it's happened in yoga. I picture that. I picture getting injured even because you
Yeah,
can't execute a posture because all of a sudden a goat runs in between your legs. Um, I just, there's a lot of things with that I picture, and maybe I'm wrong, but I also think of the way that I found yoga. The way that I found yoga was I was trying to heal myself. I was experiencing chronic conditions that doctors would give me medicine for, but that you couldn't really heal. Saying that, I was going to have to just live and accept this. Right. And so I had a background a little bit in sports. I played basketball in high school and ran cross country, but I was always a bigger person. Held a little more weight. I'm tall. And I was holding quite a lot of weight at the time, partly because of my conditions, but I was trying every single exercise modality that I could find. And at the time, it was like late 90s. And I was doing older from like the 80s, early 90s, Jane Fonda VHS tapes where she would wear the whole leotard and she would do the aerobics, right? And I even remember she had a sidekick. Her name was Laurel Sue, and they had the leg warmers and everything. And then I saw, probably Walmart, I saw a new Jane Fonda VHS, and it was Jane Fonda's yoga. And I was like, yoga, interesting. And so I bought it, and I took it back to my trailer, and I moved the coffee table, and I set out a mat. I bought a little yoga mat, and I set out the mat and put it in. And it was just sun salutations. And I remember she had a red or maroon leotard and a big long braid down her back. And it was a totally different vibe than her aerobics videos. It was just her. No class with her. Her sidekick was not there. It was just Jane. And I did those sun salutations. And like you said, I was absolutely horrible at it. I'm like, I feel so awkward. And I even thought I probably look awful doing this. I probably look ugly even. And I struggled my way through it. And then I sat down on the mat afterward. And just like you, I thought, this is not just, there's something different to this. And I've got to figure out what it is. Because I did not feel the same as when I ran cross country or after a basketball game. And I like to tell people that I found yoga through Jane Fonda. I really do, because yoga can come to you, the practice can come to you maybe through a goat yoga class. Something that seems frivolous, but somehow you connected, and then you go back to the actual yoga class. But Jane Fonda, she was doing actual yoga, which is pretty cool. And I didn't look back from there. I just kept doing yoga, and it saved my life, to be completely honest. Literally saved my life. And here 25 years later, I'm doing it, teaching it, and meeting people like you through the practice, which I'm immensely grateful for. And I do feel like somehow here I am, this woman in the mountains of southeastern Kentucky, teaching an ancient Indian practice. I'm like, only in this timeline does that happen. Like, what a gift. And that it's my dharma, and that I found it through Jane Fonda. All of those things can come together to create something so sacred. I'm like, right now the hair on my head is standing up. I feel I'm getting goosebumps. So profoundly sacred. And there are moments on my mat when I'm just practicing. I'm just moving. Sure. But there are also times on my mat where I've almost felt like Moses witnessing the burning bush. Like, whoa. Whoa. Quite literally. Things that I've never even shared with anyone, I've experienced in practice. And those were very pivotal, monumental things to me. That one of the things that I've been saying lately, and I was on a TV show called The Strength Within not long ago, and it's about to premiere. But one of the things that I told the host of that show before we talked on the show was, if I can stand up, I show up. No matter how I'm feeling. That's how important it's become to me. But I've also edited that a little bit. Now it's if I'm conscious, I show up. My practice cannot be taken away from me. Under any circumstances, no circumstances can anyone take the yoga practice away from me. I can be bedfast and practice yoga. Which that's That's probably the main difference between yoga and other exercise. I call my weightlifting yoga too. Like I have very similar experiences, but I approach the weightlifting the same way that I approach my yoga practice. And it is moving the body and it is moving energy. So I think that may be somewhat purposeful that my weightlifting feels like yoga. But I've also met quite a number of weightlifters who it's their mental health that they're
Yes.
going to the gym for. So how we arrive at that profound place can look a lot of different ways, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And you're right.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big thing. It really is.
Very big. And why I take it so serious and why I hold it close and try to practice as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. One
So,
point that I would like to make here, and I want to see what you think. We're sitting here talking about the magic of yoga, and that's the point. Yoga is exciting. It's stimulating. It's thought-provoking. It's profound. It's literal magic. It doesn't need goats to make it interesting. It doesn't need goats to make it profound. It doesn't need the goats. And you were saying this at the beginning. When is it enough?
right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So hopefully anyone who listens to this can realize that, and even if they were introduced to yoga by the goats, they can maybe expand on that and experience some of the awakening that we have experienced and continue to.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it'd be a good point now to mention a few things that we were working on and invite some people who want to get with the community, and because that's another thing, we can talk about that maybe the next time, community that it creates. But Kelly, when do we have that retreat set up for?
Okay, yeah. So we've got a retreat coming up that will be September the 25th through the 28th. And that is in Hindman, Kentucky at the historic Hindman Settlement School. It's in Knott County, Kentucky. Very rural place, right? But also very beautiful and full of a lot of history. And the space where we will be doing yoga has such good energy in there. There's been a lot of very beautiful things that happen there. And so not only if you come to this retreat, you're going to get some good yoga. And let's talk about some add-ons since we're talking about add-ons. Tell them about the art part. We're adding on that.
Well, during the weekend, we're going to add some art therapy or creative art project that you can go to each day, maybe an hour each day, or anytime you want. To just be a setup with a canvas and be able to express yourself before or after a yoga class, or anytime that you want. Was one of the add-ons that we were kind of tossing around. I think that we're going to go with it. And Kelly, some writing as well.
Yes, writing, both journaling, possibly even poetry or more creative nonfiction memoir type writing, as a means to process your practice, as a means to work through the things that it brings up. Not drawing while we're doing yoga, but after. So you've got your drawing and you've got your yoga. And then also there will be some opportunities for hiking, some lake walks perhaps, visiting the historic downtown. There's a luthier down there and usually some good art. Also the food. a lot of the times the food that is prepared there will be traditional Appalachian dishes of various variety, but they are able to accommodate different types of diets. Vegetarian, there's always vegetarian, vegan options on the menu, so that's good too.
Yeah, so we're still working on the itinerary and a final itinerary and food and cost, but I think it should be pretty affordable, and hopefully see some people there and um, enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, you can reach out to either of us to get on mailing lists and things like that, or we're both on Instagram. So we'll have ads advertising about that coming out. More
We'll
information.
post that info in the usually they post it under the description or somewhere in this podcast, wherever it's going to show up. You'll be able to find us there on Instagram and other spots, and
Yeah.
hopefully see everyone at the retreat and some workshops that we're also working on, and we'll do we have another opportunity.
Yes, and they're coming. We travel. So if you're interested in having us come out, let us know.
Right now, Kenya.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've been working this way for a couple of weeks, and I'll be heading back to New Jersey this weekend. Kelly, you're now in Kentucky and traveling around as well.
Yeah, I just got back from New Jersey and our workshop there, which was fun. We did a workshop on the lower triangle of chakras, which was a good time. It really was. I'm still inspired from it.
Yeah.
And
still getting.
Go ahead.
I said we're still getting some good feedback and good comments about it, and it was a lot of fun, and it was awesome.
Yeah, thank you for doing that with me.
You're welcome.
And we're also dreaming, of a lot of things, and one of those things is called the We Collective. So we're going to be talking about that more as we go on with this podcast and as it becomes a breathable thing. Right now it's still a little in the liminal field, but it's coming forward little by little.
It is, and it's also going to be a great way to connect and a great way to connect with the community, because that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, is to connect with like-minded people that are same hobbies, same thoughts, and want to discuss it and have a better practice. A lot of the stuff's going to be included with the We Collective, so look forward to doing that too.
Yeah, there can be a lot of things under that umbrella, and I think that's the vision.
That's the purpose of it, yes.
That's the purpose of it. And so as we move forward with this podcast, yes, we'll be talking about yoga. Obviously, we're yoga teachers.
Mostly yoga.
But I think we'll be including other topics, philosophical topics, maybe oddities, curiosities, history, art, music. I don't think there's all that much within the realm of humanities and the human experience that will be off the table for us when it comes to these discussions. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. Sometimes we could just go off on a tangent and talk about something else, but I enjoy it, and hopefully others will too, and can comment and join in. And we're always looking for more, fun, more engagement, if I should, so yeah, any topic will come up. Mostly yoga, but like Kelly said, music, oddities, mysteries, strange stories. I know a lot of them from New Jersey. I know, I've had written a few things for Weird New Jersey, and they were published, and that was a lot of fun. We could talk about that one too.
Yeah, we should.
It's fun.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
absolutely looking forward to doing it again, and um, reach out and engage, and talk.
All
Be
right.
fun.
Yes, I agree. Please do. And thank you for listening if you listened this far. Do you want to sign us off, Shawn?
I do. Thanks for everyone for listening, and see everyone around, and have a great week.
Awesome. And that concludes the Goatless Yoga Podcast, episode 1. Bye bye.